Welcome to Kaleidoscope. Today we are positive, daring and different because we're off to a collection of 119 below the surface caves in New Mexico's Chihuahuan Desert formed 4 million years ago, one of the world's best preserved cave complexes. Made of sulfuric acid and dissolved limestone, recently a tourist dropped a bag of Cheetos and the cave's entire ecosystem went haywire, creating new microbial life forms and molds. Scenic illusions, the stock market's whispers for the future, and the role of the diaspora is what we are exploring on the show today. Kaleidoscope is on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn. Please subscribe, follow us and like us for more. To our fantastic partners, Srilanka Life, CDB and The Daily Morning, thank you for being amazing.
CDB Hybrid Leasing. Enjoy exclusive interest rate and much more for hybrids, plug-in hybrids and EV vehicles.
So we look back at the week that was on CDB Snapshot. Sri Lanka's official reserve assets jumped to $5.95 billion in August. Foreign exchange revenue for Sri Lanka from tourism hits $2.17 billion within 2024's first 8 months. Sri Lanka Customs hits the big time with a historical first-time 1 trillion rupee revenue so far this year. SpaceX sends 4 civilians into the Earth's Van Allen radiation belt on its Falcon 9 rocket. Apple releases its latest iPhone 16 enabled with AI, larger display sizes and more battery life. James Earl Jones, iconic actor and voice of Darth Vader and Mufasa, passes away. The Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia buys Salvatore Mundi, Leonardo da Vinci's painting of Jesus Christ, for a whopping $450 million. It is probably the world's most expensive painting.
You focus on your goals. We will take care of the risks. Srilanka Life.
And this is Srilanka Life's news capsule. The stock market has always been a barometer of an economy's health, a leading indicator in fact. With elections around the corner, our economy is being subjected to various changes with fiscal consolidation, low inflation and low money printing. But there's little room for error right now, and the stock market is perceiving a downturn. Capital Alliance Securities Head of Research Trisha Pires gives a quick analysis of where the market is heading. So what are the sentiments driving the stock market at the moment given the impending elections?
A lot of it is of course risk. They've come from a mode of wait and see, which is what we were a couple of months ago. Now it's a lot more fear driving the market, right? Because if you look at the economic fundamentals and the broad economic activity indicators, they're all really moving in a very positive direction, right? GDP growth, we're looking at it being 3.5% to 4% this year. This is coming out of 2 years of negative GDP growth. Inflation has been very low. In fact, we're going below the IMF's targeted levels. In terms of the fiscal side of things, on the primary surplus, we've already overachieved the 2024 target for this year by the middle of the year. That's on the fiscal side. And even on the external side, the current account is in a surplus because tourism and remittances have been a lot better, right? So all modes of economic indicators are very positive. So this should obviously be signal, but right now, the risk of change in policy is overriding all those positive fundamental indicators.
So in your analysis, what scenarios will be the change drivers for the market?
Leading up to the election, the main change driver is probably going to be whether it's going to be a contested 3-way election or is it going to be 2-way election, and that's I think the only certainty that we can have prior to the election. Post-election is very much going to be one of understanding whether there's going to be policy consistency, right? And that is the one main driver, because when you look at the timeline of things, post the presidential election, you're also looking at another parliamentary election, and now on the cards is another local government election as well. So being able to understand which party is going to try to take a majority even within that is going to be another question that people have, right? So there can be a little bit of volatility. So the only positive change factor is really if there is going to be policy consistency. If that is established, that can be a very strong positive change. But other than that, it's going to be a little bit difficult. I mean, if there is kind of rhetoric around the fact that we're going to stick with the IMF program, we're going to continue on this path, our external debt restructure will finally get finalized, it's already been delayed so much. Those things can kind of add up over the months prior to the election, of course, but you need policy consistency, and that's really the main thing that can change.
And now we take a peek at the markets this week. It's been another dismal week on the Colombo Stock Exchange, with the All Share Price Index continuing to fall, with the market price earning ratio now close to only 8 times earnings. For the first time since December 2021, oil prices moved down below the $70 per barrel level. An oversupply of oil coupled with a lack of demand from major consumers saw oil prices slide to a 3-year low. It's been a good year for gold, with prices holding firm at historical all-time highs of $2,500 per ounce. If you thought you were cool, what about a dog on a surfboard? Last weekend, San Diego hosted its annual Surf Dog Surfathon, where the world's best surfing dogs showed off their skills. Did you know that 300 million tennis balls are produced every year? Belgian eco-designer Mathilde Wittok has something to say about that as she fashions bespoke furniture from discarded tennis balls. On Let's Talk today, we thought we'd clock in with a member of the diaspora, from Australia in fact, to find out why Sri Lankans overseas are so interested in what happens in Sri Lankan elections and what, if any, are their perceptions of what happens in this country. He was the first non-UK or Irish to be elected global president of SEMA, a global trainer and a consultant, and is a regular visitor to Sri Lanka and not a dual citizen. Aubrey Jerkim is on the show today, and he joins us from Sydney, Australia. Aubrey, what should voters consider before putting that cross on the ballot paper?
They must think beyond the temporary economic calm that has prevailed since the Aragalaya, which was a defining moment in the political history of the country, and really consider the pressing issues. Voter behavior is influenced by a number of factors: long-term, medium-term, short-term. And within each of these factors, there are influences such as economic, socio-economic, governance, quality of candidates, etc. Each voter must have in their own mind a frame of reference, such as who will be the best at managing the economy, right? Who will be looking at tackling corruption and adhering to the rule of law. Consider the candidate characteristics and background. Right? Is the person fit to govern? Does the person represent the wider demography? And then prioritize the above in the context of what is best for each of them and for the country as a whole. Do not be biased, and do not be influenced by the misinformation and puffery. Get the facts.
You say get the facts. In an educated community, why is it easy for voters to get fooled by false promises and those that can never really become reality?
This is not the case in Sri Lanka alone. See what is happening in the US. But referring specifically to Sri Lanka, my view is that there are 2 reasons. Firstly, from a young age, our Asian cultures teach us not to question parents, superiors, bosses, etc. Merely take for granted what they're telling you, right? This mindset continues even into their adult political life, especially when they are insecure. The second point is that they have short memories and are influenced by the most recent events. Therefore, coming close to election time, politicians provide inducements. Voters also do not think deeply. This time, most are influenced with the gas and petrol queues that have disappeared. They do not recognize that these are due to short-term fixes.
For those who have made another country their home, dual citizens they may be, but nevertheless living most of their lives out of Sri Lanka, is it fair that they have an opinion on the future leaders of this country, given that it's not going to impact them anyway?
If you understand, the reason for them having a dual citizenship is because they have some legitimate connection to Sri Lanka beyond just having been born there, right? They may have business interests, property, close family, or even come back at some point. Now, I know of some who had lived in Australia for decades and have now come back bringing their wealth along with them, right? So we don't know what's going to happen in the future. Thus, it is very important for such dual citizens to have a say in the future political outcomes and that can have an impact on that, right? Besides, don't forget, dual citizens pay a fair penny for the privilege. And one of the privileges of citizenship is being able to vote.
What is your advice to voters?
So the outcome of this election will be a game changer for the country and therefore for every Sri Lankan for decades to come, right? Do not be influenced by emotion or what has happened in the past. Consider the future, right? Carefully consider what each of the parties are offering. And most importantly, assess if the outcomes can be delivered like we talked about earlier. Do not be influenced by misinformation and fake news. Keep an open mind until you get to the ballot box. Einstein famously defined insanity as doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So if you vote as you have always voted, do not expect something different to be delivered by the leaders you vote for.
Each year in July, Chandragupta Tenura takes us through some periods in Sri Lanka's history that remain learning experiences but are generally swept under the carpet. This year, his exhibition Meta Real at the Saskia Fernando Gallery plays on the word real and the essence of it, the 3 decades of war, 2 stages of insurgencies, economic crisis and now elections. Look beyond the so-called real, the illusion that is made real. There are illusionary promises and scenes of illusion which are all made real, provoking thought on reconciliation, healing and change. He makes his canvases a mastery of the meta-real. The landscape imagery may look real, but it blends the past, going beyond the natural realm. There's depictions that connect the appearance, expressions and meanings associated with the idea of a landscape. Each canvas, each installation depicts real images but go beyond the real. So what is real? So as things get meta-real this September, we will see you next week.